Stan Moffitt. I'd like to welcome you to the 80th Entrepreneur Breakfast. And finally, I'd like to thank Nancy Everhart of Pathwise Partners. Nancy is a longtime friend, a fellow graduate of Leadership Metro Richmond. She's sponsoring today's event in honor of Betty Jolly, a dear friend and inspiration to both of us. When Betty passed away, she was working on a book to tell stories of brave and inspiring women like Dot Bruce and Bea McPherson. And she'd coined the perfect term to describe these women. She called them Dame Changers. And thank you to Nancy's ideas and support. And with that, we're going to do some more with Dame Changers in the future, and you'll be hearing about it in the future. Okay, let's get started. A January speaker was with us a year ago, was a true entrepreneur who had a history of stepping outside her comfort zone to tackle new challenges. She asked us to we asked her to tell us about her journey from her early life in Short Pump to her years in the federal law enforcement officer, and then traveling the world as a CIA operative, and then finally to running for political office. One of the questions we asked her was, what made you want to become a member of the CIA? And she told us it began in the 5th grade when she had to learn how to write her diary in code because her little sister was reading it. So when I remember that story, I knew she'd be the perfect person to introduce today's topic, the story of a young girl who had an interest in secret codes. And she even has a connection to the story that she's going to tell you about today. I'd like to introduce my friend, my fellow Wahoo, my breakfast companion whenever she has 5 hours, and our Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger.
Good morning, everyone. Stan already told all my stories, so my introduction may be a little bit briefer. I want to thank Stan and the entrepreneur community for hosting this incredible event, and thank you very much for the kind introduction. I am honored to have the ability to introduce Dorothy Bruce's children, Jim Bruce and Nancy Robertson, and her daughter Virginia, who's here as well today. I'd also like to thank the Virginia War Memorial for their continued commitment to thousands of Virginia's men and women who have defended their fellow Americans. I'm humbled when I visit this amazing place, and your efforts to help us remember the selfless service of those who came before us, like Dorothy Bruce, is one that we appreciate greatly. Dorothy Bruce, Dot as she was known, embodied the true spirit of our district and of the Commonwealth. Her ingenuity and determination did not just blaze a path for future code breakers, but it saved thousands of American lives. And today we remember and talk about her service to our country and her service to others across Central Virginia. Now, I did grow up loving foreign languages, and I did, as Stan mentioned, write my diary in code. As a little girl, I'm the oldest of 3 daughters, and I had a quite nosy middle sister who liked to practice her reading by reading my diary. I was a prolific diary writer, so I was faced with the challenge of how to protect my dearest secrets and created codes for my diaries. They're not very complicated, they're somewhat easy to crack, but nevertheless, they were mine. And so the story of Dot is one that inspired me greatly, because here is a woman who, when faced with the opportunity to serve her country and to break seemingly unbreakable codes, she rose to that challenge. And for girls and women pursuing careers in science and math, her experience is a reminder of the pioneering contributions of women in these fields throughout history. Her work to break Japanese codes was one of the most pivotal exercises in Allied code-breaking efforts in the Second World War. But what is so incredible is that for 70 years, she kept a secret. She didn't seek credit. She didn't seek the limelight. She knew that she had played a monumental role in history, that she had protected the lives of American service members in the field of combat, and she knew that their families were prospering and growing in the following decades, thanks to the diligence of her top secret code-breaking work. And as a former CIA officer, I have kept a lot of secrets. I have known what it is to recognize the mission that is so vital and so important that you keep it dear to your heart. But the notion that this woman played an unbelievable role in our nation's security, in our war effort, and for 70 years kept that quiet is just awe-inspiring. And her story continues to inspire. And that's why I am personally working to make sure that Central Virginia will always remember Dot's story and the stories of her fellow women codebreakers. And last November, I was proud to introduce legislation to name the Sycamore Square Post Office in Midlothian, near where she once lived at Spring Arbor Assisted Living after Dot. I'm working to move this legislation through the House, and so far we have the entire Virginia delegation supportive of these efforts and others, but it is sometimes the biggest challenge, just wrangling all the Virginians, because I do think it's important, and my colleagues and counterparts from Virginia think it's important that we recognize for generations the trailblazing women and the notion that someone can be inspired as they walk in and out of a local site and see the name of a woman, Dorothy Baden Bruce, in a public space, I think is vitally, vitally important. Every member of the Virginia House delegation, Democrats and Republicans, have joined in this effort, and we are working to continue gaining momentum. It's a small, small act of remembrance, but the acts of remembrance are ones that we can continue throughout the community. And my hope is that today, in hearing from her children, we will be inspired and continue to tell the story, a story that has been unknown for so many of us. For legal and classified reasons, for some 70 years is a story that we can tell our families, our children about, I heard a most incredible story, and that we can encourage her legacy to live on in young girls in particular throughout our Commonwealth. It's now my privilege to introduce Jim and Nancy this morning as we learn more about their mother's life, and I hope that you will join me in giving them a very strong, warm welcome. Thank you.